Hi, welcome to Board Game Rewind. Today I'm going to be talking about my daughter's favorite game of all time, and one that we'll be doing very shortly. It's Talisman. Oh, I got it right. Talisman. It is her favorite game of all time, and it's one of mine too. It's pretty personal to me because they grew up on this. The original version came out in 1983, I believe it was. It was a bookcase version of it, and it was pretty primitive, if anything, and there were paper cutouts and figures and so forth and so on. This version here was from the Black Industries, or when Games Workshop had the Black Library. And if you look over here, I've got all of Fantasy Flight. Fantasy Flight took it and upgraded a bit and gave it almost changed a few rules, but kind of kept the game very pure, and then started to invent some of its own stuff, because in the original version there was the dungeon and I believe the city, but it wasn't until later on that we had the Woodlands, which was an add-on for that fourth board piece that everybody always wondered about. It's a really, some people call it a game that can go on forever, and we have had some battles that have gone up to 8 hours because we played with everything, with every expansion. As a matter of fact, there is a new expansion that's out this week, and it is called, I believe, the Harbinger. So why don't you just stick with me, and I'll take out the board and we'll take a look at it, and I'll explain some of the facets of this great game. Thanks. What we're looking at here is the Games Workshop version of the board. The idea was you would start on one of these squares and try to work your way around, gathering strength and craft and trying to increase it while killing things and leveling up to be able to go to the next level and finally find a talisman and be able to capture the Crown of Command, which is right here. And it was never an easy thing because you also had to deal with your opponents. Now, they came with some very, of course, perfect, as you can see, Games Workshop figures. The Talisman basically took some of the figures, but I think they made it more of their Rune War figures. Now, each card and each character had a different type of ability. Like the assassin here always started in the city, which is over here, and his alignment was evil. Your alignment was very important because there were certain areas on the boards or certain cards that would come up that would cause and change your alignment and so forth and so on. You were also able to carry like followers, and they would give you more room to carry more equipment. And some of the equipment in here, like wands, would increase your craft, or a wrath would help you pass through the water area. Bags of gold. Gold was very important so you can buy certain things. Rune swords were able to help you with your strength. Shields help protect you or help you re-roll things. So there were a lot of really cool things. You also could purchase these same things at certain markets. Axes, armor, helmets. Oh, let me see. I'm not showing you guys. Helmets and shields. And you could buy a mule. Some fighters didn't have it, but there were spellcasters that would be able to get certain spells like healing, destroy magic. You were able to teleport to certain areas. Let's see what else we had in here. There were spell cards. Tons and tons and tons of figures the game came with. At least the original version. And cards to match. And you even could be turned into a toad. Per chance. The game was always a lot of fun. You would go around, and sometimes when you would draw an adventure card, you would run into a creature. And this is how you would get experience. You would take your craft and face it against the creature's craft. So she has a craft of 3, and you may have a craft of 3. You would then roll a 6-sided die, and my craft would be 4 plus the 3 craft that I had, which would give me a 7. Then somebody, your opponent, would roll for her, and as you see, I rolled a 2. 3 and 2 equals 5, which means you would get this card. And you would gain as many experience as the card, as their craft or their strength was. So this card is worth 3 experience. Once you got 7, you can trade them all in and add 1 to your craft or your strength. Now, of course, there were always some really nasty creatures. Wrath with a craft 5. And sometimes if you're a fighter, you didn't want to run into those type of creatures because basically, let's face it, they would wreck you if you don't have the craft. Here's one with strength. If you were a wizard, you don't want to face anything with strength. So it was always very random. Look at this demon had a craft 10. If you were a fighter, that's somebody you did not want to see. But there were certain things along the way that could help you, and you would strengthen up, and you know, sometimes the luck of the roll, the die, would be enough to do anything. Now, moving around the board, you would roll a dice, and you could go 2 this way or 2 that way. You didn't have to go in a complete round circle. You can go any way where that you felt would help you best. And of course, there were certain areas, like over here, the Sentinel, you would have to pass a certain test to get into here. And then of course the Portal of Power is where you would come up, and you would come up into here only, I believe, if you had the Talisman. Oh, you need a Talisman to enter this area here. So if you don't have the Talisman, this area was completely off limit. And sometimes finding the Talisman, as powerful as you were, wasn't enough to get you forward. And like I said, there were tons and tons of figures. All my figures are painted. This old set we don't use that much. Matter of fact, I think I have 2 of the figures out that we use. Yes, I do. Let me take a look at it. And here's our dwarf. And of course, our elf. And my daughter's favorite, of course, was the Enchantress, and she still loves playing with the Enchantress. So this game is a game that just won't go away, thanks to Fantasy Flight. Games Workshop sold the rights to it, and it's a game that takes up a lot of room, because when you start adding the expansions in, the Highlands, the dungeon, the city, the dragon, which will give you different things, the Woodlands now, which is the 4th piece that goes in there. This game takes up almost, excuse me, a 6-foot board. So if you're going to want to play this, you're going to want to make sure that you have and play it with all its glory. You're going to want to have a lot of room, because there's a lot of cards, and you know, just a lot of different things, and very random, and a lot of different things happen. Great game. One of my daughter's all-time favorites. As a matter of fact, it is her all-time favorite. And we'll be playing it this week and doing a playthrough of it. Excuse me. I'll see if I can edit that out. I doubt it. If not, pardon me. And I hope you enjoy this classic board game rewind. Talisman. If you get a chance, go out and buy it. It's great with 4 people. Sometimes it's even great with just 2 people. Just a race to see if you can get the crown of command and become all powerful. That's it for this week's classic board game rewind. We'll see you next week. I believe I was going to do Ogre this week, but I think you guys got tired of Steve Jackson games since I was doing so many. So I think I may put that off, and there's a couple other things that I may slip in there for board game rewind next week. And we'll talk about a few things. So that's it for this week. We'll see you next week, and stay with me all this week. We're going to be doing a ton of content and videos, and look for the edited version of the painted Blood Rage figures. We'll see you soon. Thank you.